Today, I want to talk with you about the process of finding your first job. Hello, it's Darius of devconfident.com. I've been coding for 20 years, over 20 years, working full time, over 10. And recently, one of my first clients, guys who I was helping, landed his first job in fairly big brand. It's not the easiest, but I believe it's fairly straightforward when you know what steps are necessary. I assume you just finished school, uni, or some boot camp, and now you are in the market to find your first job. Also, it may be daunting with recent layoffs and mild recession happening at the time, and companies are not as keen as they were, let's say, before pandemic happens on hiring new people. That's why it's even more important for you to present yourself the best you can. First things first, you need to have skills. You're just starting, so you don't need to be an expert, but you need to know the basics of your craft. So, if it's programming language, if it's base of using version control like Git, you don't need to know others nowadays. Thank God. You need to know what database is, how to use it. You need to know what is REST API, because no matter on which side you will be working, you will use API. Even if you focus on front end, you will still need to know what the API is, because that's how you will get data into your application. On programming languages, you have few options to start. My recommendation would be, if you like to create beautiful websites, you go with JavaScript and either React or Angular, one of those. You probably need to know both eventually. Pick one, stick with it. If you like e-commerce, websites with some more functionality, you can look at PHP. It's fairly low bar to enter. You will work on shops, blogs, this kind of stuff. Then, if you like data, then the natural choice would be Python to start with. It will let you, again, build all the webby stuff, but also opens you to data science opportunities with how Python supports it. And last but not least is the evil corporate languages of Java and C#. Personally, I'm in Java. They are not evil, they are awesome. A lot has changed over the last 10 years-ish. You don't need to be worried that you will be writing thousands of lines of boilerplate. But if you are interested in finance, business processes, and all the more complex stuff, that's the way to go. Entry point is slightly higher, but the opportunities are better, and in my opinion, they are scaling better looking forward into your career. Simply the top gap is way higher than in other languages, in my opinion. You need a combination of skills to be attractive on the job market. If you just know programming language, it's not enough. You need to learn, as I mentioned earlier, you need to learn what is Git, because that's what they will use. That's what you will use. You need to learn tooling, so npm in JavaScript, Composer in PHP, Maven, Gradle in Java. I have no idea what is in C#, something similar. You need to have a read what Agile is, to know what is Scrum, what is stand-up, what retro is. And having those 4 things should put you well ahead of people who don't know them. You can also have a read about cloud infrastructure, AWS or Google Cloud, especially if you're aiming towards the backend side of things. And last thing I would say is to know what CI/CD is. And what it means is continuous integration and continuous delivery. Basically what it means is how do you deploy your code to environments, how to deploy it into production in easy way. If you know all of that, you'll have fairly straightforward time. And again, you don't need to be an expert. What you need to is to know what they are. Watch some videos, look at Coursera, look at YouTube, free courses. I'll be speaking about those things later on as well. But for now, look at the internet, Google everything, learn what it is, ask AI. Actually, that's a good point. Learn AI. Get ChatGPT is the best $20 you can spend for yourself ever. If you have only $20 a month, just get GPT and ask it question and it will answer, and follow up in detail with Google and other articles. Now we need to put it into practice. You finish your school, but the learning just started. And it will never stop. As engineer, you will learn every day, so you need to get used to it. And the best learning is by doing. If you won't make mistake, you won't learn how to build software. So, while we are still talking about starting to look for a job, and at the start it won't take that much time, you need to spend a reasonable amount of time on just learning how to code, building sample projects, build a blog, build a shop. That's what I did in my early 20s after school. I've learned at the time Delphi and Object Pascal, and they were already dying in early 2000s. And I've made decision to switch to PHP at the time, because also it didn't require a university and higher education. It was very easy to get into. So what I did, I spent good amount of the days just coding, just creating another shop, another blog. Oh, let's create something like bank account. And those were disposable projects, but every single time I've learned something new. Every single time I made some mistake and I've learned from it to not make it on the next time I will approach the project. I used different frameworks. I was using Zend at the time. I don't know if you know Zend framework, but then something new came in. So, okay, let's try to build the same thing using different framework and learn how it looks like. Let's read the code of the framework itself. How is it built? Can I learn something from this? And you can always learn a lot reading other people's code. When you do that, this is your path to success, to be great engineer overall, because you need to keep it up forever, basically. To give you context, in like 22 years of coding, I can safely say that I spent at least 10 years in front of the computer, coding or listening to podcasts or hacking servers, or not hacking servers, like installing servers left, right and center. I've never been black hat, really, too much risk. But installing, like even like year ago, I was just constantly installing Kubernetes clusters on some like cheap VPSs around the Europe, just to learn what Kubernetes is or Docker Swarm, and hosting like my blogs on them. And every time I spent a day or two installing it and then messing something up, it was lesson learned about how to not mess it up next time. If you followed what I said before, you've gained your skills, you've learned a lot about necessary things. Now it's time to create your CV. Your CV, you don't have much to put there, so it's actually the nice thing about starting. You don't need to juggle 20 different job history patterns. But as I'm hiring people and reviewing CVs, the most important thing I'm interested in is your experience, the practical one. So, if you put your university, any relevant education, courses, it's great. It's like, as a junior intern, that's why I want to know why you are interested in it. If you finished bootcamp, the same. Show it. Put your grade. It doesn't matter in grander scale of things, but if you don't have experience, every little helps. Next thing, put on your CV a paragraph. Don't go into essay. Or what is your goal? What do you want to do? And it should be, I would hope, is to learn how to be a better engineer. And why you want to join the company, and put the skills you've learned, put them as well somewhere on the side. What skills do you have? And important thing, look at the job offer and spend some time aligning your CV with the job offer you're going to. If you put that you did JavaScript and you're applying for Python position, it is relevant, but if I'm recruiting you on the Python and I see JavaScript, I see no alignment with the company. So try to promote what you know, what you did. As you're working on your project, you should create GitHub account as well. Put this GitHub on your CV. If you have some specific projects you took great care to make them, put them as well. Put some description. This is what you did. That was the assumption you worked with, and here is the implementation. Then I can look at the code and I see, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. She created the project and it makes a lot of sense, and she used design patterns and stuffs, and this way you promote yourself and convince the people, because what you're really doing with your CV is you need to convince the person who looks at it in about 30 seconds that it's worth to speak with you in the first stage of the interviews. That's all it is. So make sure that you capture their attention on the first second, having in bold that you know the technologies that the company is using. Side note on CVs, especially if you're sending it to recruiters, love your recruiters, but you not always know where the CV will end up. And never use some dodgy websites. Oh, upload your CV and we'll find you a job. It doesn't work really. Second thing, if your CV lands somewhere, your phone number, your address, whatever you put there will be publicly accessible eventually. I cannot count times when I've got I know that my CV leaked and I've got phone calls, spam, on my email. Just don't put your personal details, especially address. You can probably, with some social engineering, they can figure out and get credit card on your address. So I wouldn't do that. Put them into body of the email which you're sending to recruiter. As we have CV out of the way, now let's talk about promotion. Promoting yourself. First step, create the LinkedIn profile and follow the same steps as with the CV. Put all the relevant experience, put your relevant skills, what you are enthusiastic about, and your GitHub projects with some description. So this will work as your online homepage, your online CV for companies and recruiters to find you. Having this done, now it's time to apply to the companies. Search on LinkedIn. Every country, as far as I know, has their own job boards related to IT. And just send CVs to as many as you can. I would say minimum 10. I would go even further, personally. That's how, when I was looking for a job, especially in the time when I was in similar situation when I switched from PHP to Java, I had experience, but I was completely unknown to Java world of recruitment. So again, go en masse. Your goal is to find first job. You're not looking for the job, you're looking for first job. So someone will validate your skill and you will learn the job. You learn the ropes. Also, having multiple interviews helps you learn the interview process itself, because you will fail interviews. And with every one of those failures and people telling no to you, you will learn how to be better on the next one. That's why the scale matters. You need to learn a lot in fairly short time. In the same time, it gives you, knowing that you fail helps you to reduce the stress of the interview, because it will be first time for you to speak with the company, speak with the recruiters, speak with the technical recruiters, hiring teams about your skills. And it is skill on its own how to present yourself. Every time you go to the interview, my mantra is expect the best, prepare for the worst. So go with open mind, do your best. Worst case scenario, they will say no, but then you have 9 other application waiting. Typical interview will have few stages. First, you'll probably speak with recruiter, someone from people's team's hiring team, where they will ask you some general questions about your experience, what was your school, are you eligible to work, because like in UK you need to have certain paperworks, in other countries probably the same, some work permits, stay permits, etc, 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 kind of like pseudo boring stuff, but it needs to be ticked off. Next will be some kind of technical interview. It can be code. A lot of companies like to give you coding tasks where you either get some project to do on your own, or it's what I like better, also from a hiring perspective, is to do pair programming exercise where you need to implement some features over half-finished project. Those are usually very easy, so don't worry that you will need to do super complex tasks. But from my experience, I also know that big corporations, if you hit big banks, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan in UK, they will ask you for about like low-level stuff. Personally, I'm not good at those, so I don't mind. I've tried, but you don't need to know those at low level. It's good to know, but you don't have to. Just do your best and make sure that you will keep communicating. If you have questions, just ask them to show that you are a communicative person. And this will lead to technical alignment interview, which is more focused on the non-programming skills. As I told you earlier, Git, Agile, some architecture, what is the REST API. Those are like the common questions being asked, where it will be testing your breadth of knowledge rather than just coding. Coding is just part of the job. There is way more to it. And this is usually chill, informal conversation about technology itself, about your goals. It depends who will interview you, and depends on the interviewer, you will be asked different questions. And that usually is it. You may have after that something that it's called team fit interview. The goal of this stage is to check if you'll be cultural fit for the company. As different companies can have different mantras, let's call it this way, where some are more corporate, following the rules, following the tasks, where some are more open to innovation, learning, etc., etc. Also, remember, every time going to the interview works both ways. It's the same as the company is interviewing you, is you interviewing the company. And every single question being asked during the interview says something about the company. For example, if they ask, do you like to try different programming languages? It means that they're probably looking for someone who likes to innovate. And if they ask you, are you happy to work after hours and on weekends? This probably means that there is a lot of work done outside of working hours. So take everything with a grain of salt, because it's not always the case. But you can get the feel and the vibe of the company just from the interviewing process. If like the recruiters are rude, because also with one of my first clients, one of the companies he was interviewing with, he asked a question and got like very rude answer that he shouldn't be asking that. Again, it's bad sign, it's bad for the company, and you probably would want to avoid this kind of experience as your first one. It like also depends how much you need the money, you need the work. Sometimes if you don't have options, you go with the bad one and then immediately continue to look for something better. That's the life. And it's on the company to keep you. It's not your responsibility. The company should provide you the environment you want to work in and enable you to learn, not you having to sacrifice your life and mental health for the company. Cool. So at this stage, just continue, repeat. Again, as I said, scale matters. And as you're just looking for your first job, you probably have a fair amount of time. So continue, repeat, and trust me, in no time you will land your first job. It's not easy, it is challenging. I hope what we talked about today make it more straightforward. As my old CTO tend to say, there is no easy things. It's only possible to make them straightforward. Keep on repeating, keep on improving, keep on learning as well between the interviews. You will be great with your first job in no time. Bonus tip on the interview: every time you read the job offer, Google every single technology and word you don't know, like you didn't hear about, on their job offer, even if it's optional. More you know, the more attractive you are as potential employee, and it shows that you want to learn. And that's it. Good luck in your search. Remember to like and subscribe. If you subscribe at this point, you may be 50% of my subscriber count, so it matters. And yeah, good luck and see you in the next one.